Okay, this is the deck over patio project. I've already started installing some 16-foot 5/4, but what I'm going to show here is the prep work, which is a lot. Probably took a month of weekends to build all this. There's plenty of instructions online. Family Handyman has a good article. But basically, you're going to start at your high point, which for me was like directly in the center here. You can see there's hardly any shims. And then find that high point and work back from there. Don't start in the corner where you think it's the low point and shim up. You got to start at the high point, just like how you put in cabinets or anything else. I decided to go with this concrete was all, you can tell it's all broken up and it's very unlevel, and I decided to go then with a circular deck. So instead of a rectangle, this is 20 feet. Instead of putting a 20-foot back, I put a arc, and I made that arc, just extended out these pieces, these cantilever pieces, and made sure they're at least 4 feet on solid ground before they get extended out. Took a piece of lattice. It's a thin little 1.5 inch by, I think they sell in Home Depot, about 15 feet. Put two of them together, pinned each point that I wanted to, 3 points, bent it around it, and then drew a line, and then took a jigsaw and cut it off. And I'll do the same thing with the boards, the decking boards. The prep work for this was intense. Like I said, you have to do a lot of leveling. You can see I use a lot of shims. I used approximately 65 packs, which are in 12 each of composite shims, which is a lot, and then about 400 Tapcons. Mainly those Tapcons, I used more because I had to use 2 per in a lot of places here. So I used up all my leftover composite wood, whether it be old pieces of AZEK decking or cedar or pressure treated or PVC. You can see there's anything that will fit in there will work. Using an 8-foot level would be great, but I only have, in this case, a 4-foot level. That 4-foot level there, and I ended up buying a piece of aluminum channel and use that to extend the straight edge. All these don't have to be level. The whole thing doesn't have to be level, but they do have to be in the same plane so that this decking doesn't have wobbles in it, front to back or side to side. Just make sure they're in the same plane. That 8-foot piece of aluminum channel you can get, or any straight edge for that matter, would make a big difference, and it did help me go much faster. So get some pieces of 1/2 inch composite material if you don't have any. Like I said, I use about 400 Tapcons. To drill those Tapcons was the Harbor Freight SDS drill with a Bosch bit. I went through 7 of those Bosch bits for these 3/16 Tapcons. There's a 2 3/4 for the long pieces. Say if you go like directly into concrete, which would be maybe over here, and then or 3.5, you can get them in 3.5. And then for the pieces that tie down the 1/2 inch composite boards or the 3/4 composites, see the little right there, the white pieces right here, you can just use a hex bit, a 1/4 inch. It's much easier to drive, I think, than Phillips, so they don't strip. But between the 1 3/4, the 2 3/4, and then I bought some 3 and I think 3 1/4 was the longest you can get. Sort of sprinkle those throughout depending on the application. So in some cases I can go directly into the concrete. Other cases use a 1/2 inch piece or whatever you have laying around. The other thing is I made this extremely much more difficult. That's why it took 3 weekends, is because I'm making an arc, so I can't keep these boards in parallel all the way out there. I wanted to pin them at least 4 feet fixed before I went out to the end. So when you turn all these then there's much more blocking you have to put in. Lots and lots and lots of blocking. So I went through, had a lot of leftover 2x8s pressure treated, as well as some of the sleepers that I cut down into pieces, spaced them no farther than 16 inches, some cases much less, depending from around the end, and either face nailed them and then toe screwed them, or toe screwed them all if I didn't have a place to face nail. Say in this case, where I didn't have a place, I toe. Screwing works much better than the nailing because they tend to fracture when you toenail in versus screwing, but then the framing nailer, at least it did for me, and it just takes a lot of patience. So I end up not using a tape measure here. I use the device that expands, almost like a little pointer. See if I can find it here. There it is. This thing. This is a tool I found on a woodworking website a long time ago. I use for internal. See how it just expands? You stick that in there. It pushes to whatever length you need, and then you take that measurement. It's fixed. You go back to the chop saw, cut it, bring it back. I find that was much more helpful than what I was originally doing, which was measuring that piece with the tape measure, measuring that piece, measuring them all, and then going to the chop saw and cutting 6 or 7 at a time. One reason is because if you put one in here that's longer than the measurement or the actual area, then it can expand those 2 pieces. This is where I started doing that, and I was frustrated, so I went to this technique, this telescoping tool for the rest of it. So it worked out much better that way in terms of cutting all these little pieces of blocking. And then lastly, before I put the blocking in finished up, I put in, if you can tell over here, there's joists, I'll call them. They're like 2x4s set into the, let's see if it'll turn, there we go, set into the stone. I had some 3/4 stone left over, so I brought it all in after I leveled this out. Brought all the stone in, then tamped it in, and then laid those joists, and then pre-drilled those holes. So you're going to drill completely through the first hole, the sleeper, and then when you drill through into the joist below, that vertical, the piece hanging on its edge, then you're going to get a very tight joint versus just space screwing through, because if you can try it out, there's plenty of videos online that'll show you that. So I pre-drilled all these to make sure they really suck tight, the joists suck to the sleepers, because I didn't want them to bounce. So that was a pain in terms of leveling it, those joists, because you don't know what level you're going to be at unless you do this in advance and level all the gravel completely first. It's difficult to know where the top of your joist is going to be in relation, say, to the back edge of the wall. So if I was to do this over again, I would have put all gravel and been a lot more time intensive with the gravel to make sure it was more level before I went on and came back afterwards and had to level them off later. So that's a tip. But the blocking takes a long time, but it uses up a lot of wood. So if you have a lot of extras, it's good for that. We'll have to also we have an edge here. These two intersect, and it starts a new radius. That new radius also has to be done the same thing. Has to be joists cut, and then like see this piece right here, I'm gonna have to cut that off because you see how it comes out past the arc. So just cut that with a sawzall, and then that way you won't see it. And that's that arc. Same principle. Used a piece of lattice. Brought in a bunch of stone. Gonna have to get rid of this dirt here too as well. So excavating after the fact was no fun. Do that in advance if you can, if you're going to extend out past your deck. So normally this video would be much shorter if I only had to do parallel joists, or sleepers I should say, out to here. Right, level that all off, and all my boards would just run and die at the end of the rectangle, this 12 feet out. This is 12 feet to this point. But in for a penny, in for a pound, going to do something, might as well try it and go with the circular design to see how it looks. And I think it's going to turn out well. It's at least double the amount of work, I would say. I would have been done 2.5 weeks ago. Right now I'm just getting to the decking. So Lastly is the camo tool system I'm using. It seems to be working very well, even with the 16-footers, which tend to wander. They bite in and they move the board well. So I pin in at one edge, maybe at the far edge down here, and then come back and find maybe where it's too tight or too wide and pin those back to make sure everything's in alignment with each other. Started from the center point, working each way, so that way I don't have I have a center design, I guess, regarding as soon as you walk out the door. That was the point. This left piece here is in line with the center line of the door. Then I'll come back and I built these little steps because, in fact, the step isn't tall enough when they built it. And again, you're going to be adding this decking, so just built, you know, little steps here. They'll have some decking just like this on top of it. That way, the step is equal between here. In my case, it wasn't. It was very tall. This step was almost 12 inches, and before this step was, I think, 6.5. So whoever poured this didn't think about that when they made it. So I'm trying to correct that. So if you're going to do this project, get a lot of Tapcons, get an SDS drill. Don't rent one unless you're going to do them all in 2 days. It's a lot of work. You go through 7. I went through 7 bits. I sheared them off in the hole. So just buy, for the 400 plus Tapcons, I bought 7 bits and I broke all but one. Just going, you know, going slowly, but still, it's just bound to happen. Buy your Tapcons. Buy lots of decking screws. I bought the for the toe nailing and for the face nailing of these sleepers. They are a I don't know if you can tell, but they're a deck screw. They're a Torx bit. That's called Deckmate. Again, at Home Depot or wherever you can find them. And then now it's going to be decking time, and cut around the post and do all the finishing of that. So good luck with your project. Okay, so this is the halfway through the decking of the patio deck that went over concrete. Everything's leveled out, and using the camo system, it's working pretty well. Some tips were these boards. You know, not every piece of wood, especially 16-footers like this, aren't straight all the way down. So you have to usually pin them back. So put screws in one end and then pull back the other. Well, sometimes that creates a no gap like it does right here in the middle. So I use just some of the shims to space that correct spacing. It seems to work better than these are only 16th inch spacing. This little tip here. So a 6D nail or something doesn't really work that great. The shims seem to work better. The camo system is easy to use. It sets the correct depth. Comes with 2 heads that jig and almost 900 screws for $100. Home Depot, online only. When I went there, it was online only. The only other thing was I'll go around this window well here that's poured into the patio. That to create the curve here in certain spots, you line up your pieces before you put them in, and then I end up using just solder. If you got some thicker solder, probably the better, but it holds its shape well. You pick your starting and ending points and lay it over the profile you need. And then you know your starting position, which would be in the back corner. And in my case, I had 3 inches here, so I measured 3 inches the starting spot, and then the ending location, just put a tick there, so I knew how far to put the solder. So that way you have the correct arc. After you form the profile, you're not starting too far over or too far in. Cut it with a jigsaw, and then it goes in just as normal, just with the camo tool. So for now, it goes very fast compared to putting in the sleepers. and this takes many weekends. I mean, this has taken 2 days of only because it rains. It's been raining quite a bit, but that would be the only tips. Everything else flies pretty decently, and then just making sure you got a good jigsaw blade to cut the cedar with. Okay, here's the finished deck. It's all complete. The whole thing has been, all the boards have been put in and then trimmed to the appropriate arc. The arc was achieved by taking 2 pieces of 12-foot lattice. They're just a strip of wood, basically. Maybe it's an 1/8 of an inch thick, maybe 1 inch tall, 12 feet long. Pinning it on either side, over here, and then over there, and creating a radius, and then the same thing over here, over there, creating a radius. Drawing it with a pencil, and then following it with a jigsaw. Some of the things that I wish I would have done differently is don't rush the jigsaw cuts, because they can be difficult, I guess, to rework later. The other thing I did was, after I cut them all off, I wanted to take a 1/4 inch round over bit on my router and just hit that. But instead, what was happening is if there's any inconsistency in the wood, meaning that the blade went in and out again, because you didn't hold it absolutely steady, then the bearing on the router bit makes an irregular pattern. So instead, I just took a 100 grit random orbital sander, rounded over everything nice, and then touched up the end grain as well, so it's not as frayed. And then took a 220 and then did it again. Took maybe 20 minutes for the whole thing. The seed, or I should say, the pressure treated itself was easy to cut, and it's just watered down right now and easy to clean. So on the steps, took a round over as well. It's just a end of a yogurt container, and use that as a reference point to create a radius, and then spaced them. And now these steps are equally spaced, because before they were wildly out. This is another addition. It's I wired up LEDs so down this down tube. I had to finish up the steps. I ran out, but I'm going to do one underneath the step treads. Just run. That's why I left an overhang over here around it, so that I could run a LED strip light underneath it. Just got this 4-wire conductor wire that comes in, whatever length you need. Ran that all the way around here, all the way down that edge. Put this board in last. It had to be scribed to this wall, and then it pops out the other side right here. Do my junction right here. I can always get to this board if I need to. I also did waterproof connectors, and then if you go out around the perimeter, I'll get over here. Show one more thing. This just holds the power supply and holds an RF receiver. This is the transmitter remote, and then that's plugged into a. This used to just be one outlet right here, so I put a 4x4 box, a double gate box, and then a switched outlet. So now it's on right now, so the power is always getting in. That way I don't have to worry about unplugging it or whatnot. I just switch the outlet off and on and break the tab. That way now it's controlled. This outlet is controlled by that switch. And then I have my 2 other switches for other things, or outlets. So in this case, an extension cord right now, playing the radio off of. But it's just a 6x6 box. All right, so Velcroed the remote up here so that it will sit up there when you need it. And then you come out here, and right here is where the lights are. Let's see if I can turn them on. There we go. So there's a pattern. You can, change colors. It looks blinking right now, but in reality this is static. There we go. It looks like it's there we go. There's the color. It looks static on the in real life as well on the camera. It runs all along the perimeter here, and it comes in 5-meter rolls. Make a junction. There's a junction right here. Just hide the junction underneath the overhang. And now last thing was putting in capitals with some trim pieces. Tie back in. You got to caulk and paint those, but just PVC trim so they won't rot to hide the cut. And then finishing up on the steps. The other thing, the arc turned out well for the window well cover. Not too shabby, so I'll take it. It's trying to follow the well is actually not the same radius as this grate that was here when I bought the house, but so overall the project was probably 2 months of weekends, adding into the electrical, added another day and a half of work to run these lights, and I'll show you a picture at night when this is all on, and the different things, how it looks. Okay, here it is outside at night with the fireplace going. And then the lights doing their thing. Change all the colors. Until you are look. All the way to the other end of the gun. A fire pit, the lights. Change it with the RF controller. It's pretty cool. Green, yellow, whatever. Make it all go crazy, flashy. Like a spaceship. So the colors. You do all the modes.